What's up?
Oh my gosh, it's the live coin Q&A.
Who?
Who?
Who are those people?
Who
What's
are
up,
they?
Adrian?
Hello, everybody. Not our usual Monday night. It's Tuesday night. I have some yelling going on in the background, so you'll have to try to ignore that. We have a special guest tonight, and you guys have, if you've been hanging around our channel long enough, you recognize Tom. He's done some presentations. One of our most popular actually was a presentation he did on short snorters, and he's kind of rolling that into where he's going to be doing tonight. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited. Yeah. I've only seen like 3 little slides that you sent Amanda, so I don't know anything about what you're talking about tonight. I'm going to be learning right along with everybody else, and I'm so excited.
So did I not discuss the Major General Clayton Bissell Short Snorter?
I think you did mention it.
I mentioned it,
yes.
But I didn't do the full 420-page PowerPoint presentation.
No.
Right. Okay.
St. Portia, what's up?
Jack really excited. Yeah. Say hi to everybody.
David coming in.
It's been a while.
It's been a while since we've seen all you guys. Hopefully we'll have a lot of people see us pop up. What's up, Sloppy?
Sloppy Stacks.
There's a few people coming in.
Jack Gallman, AZ Coins. Dave's not here. Scott Holiday. Yoke Fan. St. Portia, y'all are alive. We are alive. Can you believe it? I've been working, and me and Amanda and Shay have been working on some emails, and Shannon's just been slacking off, and
slacking, she said. Slacking off. Okay.
Slacking.
Slacking
off.
Kelly, Kevin, Christopher, good to see you guys.
Yeah, so we're doing a little bit of still working on some new stuff. You guys are welcome to start sending us some emails, some questions in the email. We are going to be reformatting that. So sometime in the near future, we'll be putting out some little videos. You guys will see some videos popping up here and there. And those are meant as educational, but they're also going to be used by us to answer some of the more frequent questions that we get in the email. So instead of typing out a lengthy explanation or description, we'll be able to just pull a video and link it right to the email. So it's going to make it much easier on us, and hopefully a better experience for you guys. So yeah, I don't want to jabber on too long. I'm not sure how long Tom's presentation is going to be. I hope it's a nice long time.
It can be long or it can be short. It depends on how much time
we got all the time in the world.
Can you tell when people fall asleep or not?
Well, they'll start dropping off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but listen, we have some of the best viewers that come to our channel. They're hungry for knowledge and they really want to learn. So I'm not too worried about it. And if they don't watch it now, they'll come back and watch it again. So
that's right.
I do want to mention to you guys that you are going to want to click the notification bell and keep an eye out, because on May 3rd, we are going to be doing an interview with Greg Bennick and John Miller from Coneca. And they're actually doing a really neat presentation for summer seminar on varieties and errors. So they're actually doing a class on those for summer seminar. And so we're going to have them up and have them talk about that a little bit. And they know their stuff. So you're going to want to come in here and get some questions ready for them. And yeah, it's going to be fun. So Tom, I don't know if you need us to pull up your PowerPoint or if you're just going to share your screen or how you want to do that. But
yeah, share screen.
Okay.
You betcha.
And hey, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in chat and we will star them as they come up. And as soon as Tom is done with his presentation, then we'll get back to your questions.
Okay. So you'll have to remind me. It's been a while. I think
So
I
you hit
clicked the present
yes, hit
down at the
present,
bottom.
and then it'll give you options of what you want to share, and then you just click on that.
Slides. Oh, your computer.
I'm excited too, Kathy. Thanks for being here, everybody. It's so good to see you guys. We have really missed you, and we've missed doing this live and hanging out with you guys and stuff. We don't have a set day yet for that. We're going to be coming back normally, but that will all be coming in the near future. So,
okay. So I'm on the screen sharing thing, and it says, because I've got my laptop, and then I've got a separate monitor.
okay.
And
whichever one your presentation is on, just click on that.
Oh,
just click on that box on the present under the present thing.
Let's see here.
So it'll say, are you using Chrome or?
I'm using the Opera.
Okay, well, up at the top, you should have options where it'll say like tab, window, entire screen.
When I click the present button?
Yeah.
It says slides and PDF, video file, image file, share screen.
Click whichever one you want to do, and then share screen. Yeah.
Well, I think you have to share screen first, and then you choose.
Yeah, you have to click share screen first.
And then you choose it.
Share screen.
Tea time. Hello.
Awesome,
Welcome.
tea time. Good to see you.
Joseph C. Hey, kin of mine. Good to see all you guys. Thanks for being here. You guys are the best.
Yeah, still not seeing that particular.
So you clicked present.
Yep. And it says choose what to share with StreamYard.com.
Yeah.
The site will be able to see the contents of your screen. Then I'll get an Opera tab, an application window, or your entire screen.
Yeah, whichever one you want.
Okay.
Just click on that, and then I will pull that up.
Okay. I'm getting an open system preferences.
Thanks, Christopher.
Yeah, I don't know anything about computers, so. Shannon knows more. Amanda might be able to help you. Thanks, Christopher. There'll be more to come. We've kind of taken a 3-month. Oh, just something. There we go. Hang on.
Oh, I have no idea what you're seeing.
Well,
that's not what I wanted.
Okay, then click stop share.
Okay, stop screen.
But now you have an idea of what you want to, what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I know, me too, Jack Riley. Well, I am excited to see you guys. So I hope everybody had a great holiday season and is getting ready for spring. Had a great Easter. Ronald Perry, what's the topic? So the topic is going to be a certain type of short snorter. It says right on the thumbnail, it says exactly what the topic will be.
Major General Clayton L. Bissell.
A silver 1982D penny. Well, so if it's silver, it wouldn't be a penny. You could possibly have a cent struck on a dime planchet, but the odds are that you probably have a plated cent.
Something plated that color. What's up, Janine? Good to see you.
Yeah. That's the odds. We see that quite often. They can be plated with zinc. They can be plated with nickel. all kinds of different things. So
Awesome, Jack.
So you have all of this open in a PDF file. Is that what's going on, Tom?
It's actually in Keynote. I've got a Keynote file open, which is the PowerPoint version on a Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't see where it's.
So if you open it if you open it full screen onto your monitor,
Yeah.
then when you click present and share screen, you should be able to click on and share entire screen.
Let me move it back over to my Mac and we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah, Joseph, see, they're pretty common. It's pretty common. They do it also. Kids do it in science class. They have little science experiments that they do with those. It was in a steel scent roll.
Could have been if someone didn't pay any attention.
Yeah, they probably just saw the edge of it and just stuck it in with the.
Oh, it looks like I got to restart Opera. That's no fun.
Okay. No, I'm not going to sing opera. I was about to, but.
Okay, I might get bounced out, so
we'll let you back up.
That's it.
Oh.
Got down.
Sorry about this, you guys. Technical difficulties. You know how that is. Hopefully he'll be able to work this out. He was having some issues, so we couldn't get on with him earlier to work the bugs out before we went live. He actually joined us about a minute before we went live, so it happens. So now would be a great time if you guys have any questions for us. Hello, Sloppy Stacks.
Especially if you have any, questions for Amanda, because she'd just love to talk to you.
She loves questions. She does.
Isn't it great to see her smiling face again?
Not me, Joseph. I don't know nothing. Like, I do coins. I don't do computers.
Right. Hey, Daniel. Good to see you.
Daniel Baker.
Good.
How can Q&A find some short bites?
That's a good question for this man.
Snot the notes. Okay. To try and find out the signatures. Oh, okay. So Saint Forche, shoot us an email. Tom's our guy when it comes to short snorters and the signatures. So shoot us an email. Take as clear pictures as you can of both sides and maybe close-ups of the signatures. And we will send them to Tom and see if he can decipher those signatures for you. Figure out who's on that note.
Gotcha.
He likes doing that stuff. I remember him saying that.
That's what I do.
That's what he does.
Oh, this is painful.
I'm
What?
sorry.
What is going on with this thing? Okay. Hang on a second.
I'm wondering if there's a way that you can send it to one of us. I mean,
Well, it's a huge file.
huge file.
Yeah.
Well, I know how you could make Amanda smile, but I can't tell you. It's a secret.
Well, she's good. Maybe.
Coins and books. Coins and books.
Is that Super Mario Kart behind you, Amanda?
Yes.
I thought it was. It's hard to tell, but yeah. I thought it might be.
Autocorrect changed my wording on that. It's okay. I figured it out. Oh. No worries, Tom. Don't worry about it. Look, our viewers are so used to us having little snafus here and there. They'll be all right. They'll be okay. Like number 23. Thanks, David Carlisle.
Awesome.
23 likes. Yay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, you guys. It's Amanda's fault.
Yeah, it's new. You know, new technology. You
I
gotta
know.
test drive it a little bit.
You gotta play with it a little bit. Talk nice to it.
That's what she said.
Stop that.
Oh, it's David Carlisle too.
David Carlisle too.
He's
Yeah.
he's buffing our thumbs ups is
Good. I like that.
right.
SFC coins and books. What books do? Fun fact: I just talked to my son-in-law about this collection. Gave him the rundown on in case he kind of has an idea on what's what. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Flying Dutchman, thanks for being here.
What's up, Flying Dutchman?
That is not Matt.
So, Tea Time wants to know if the penny is going to stop being made.
There is no end in sight.
Good question.
There is no end in sight. As of February's or as of March's numbers, they are almost at 1 billion production for this year already. So we will know long before it happens because there will be legislation
Right.
goes along with it. And yeah, so but we will be seeing
There you go.
we will be seeing cents in our change all of the rest of my lifetime, and I am sure most of all of your life. Canada still has cents going around. So
and they've been, when was that?
2012 or 2013?
2013, I think.
2013? Yeah.
Somewhere around there, yeah. So that's been a while. And welcome in, Ashes. Good to see you.
Ashes, my friend. Thanks for being here. I'm so glad to see you guys. It means a lot.
2012, they said.
2012.
You were right. I was close.
2012, 2013. Is the mint is changing the coins for the 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial. Oh, looks like we got it up.
Looks like we do.
That's really what she said. All right.
All right. Hey, you
Discover
stop that, Shannon.
So, are you seeing one slide now?
I am only seeing one slide.
Okay, and it's the one with the flag background.
Yes.
Yep, it's on the screen.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your patience. Let's get after it.
All right.
So let me step back a little bit. There's some text in the front of this book that was put together. It's a digital book. It was just published 2 weeks ago on the Numismatic portal. The research was funded by the Numismatic portal, one of their research grants that was awarded last year. I made a trip. I don't know if I've talked to folks about this Bissell Snorter, but bottom line is I wrote a book about it. I'd already put together all the slides because I had taken all the pictures to document the actual short snorter and going through and deciphering the signatures. And so decided that, as long as I had that all done, and that was like 260 pages, let's go figure out more about Clayton Bissell, because this short snorter artifact is just so amazing. And so this is the front of the book. I'll send the link or QR code where you can go to the Numismatic portal and check it out. It's free. That was part of the terms and conditions of the grant. Jeff Garrett, who is affiliated with Sarasota Rare Coin Galleries, he agreed to write the foreword for it, which I'm grateful for that. And then we'll just get right into it. So this is the foreword that he wrote, and it talks a little bit about the background of how this artifact came into their shop, and how it sat around for 20 to 30 years. And one of the guys in the shop was going to retire, so they had to figure out what to do with their put away boxes, which is funny. He says that most coin dealers, that's, you know, how they acquire a collection, because they don't like take a lot of coins out. You know, they got to turn around and sell them. So they have all these, you know, things that they put back in the back. And I know some guys like that. And how he contacted Joe Bowling, who put him in touch with me. And when I got that email from Jeff Garrett, I just, you know, was kind of blown away, because I'd, you know, never been contacted by someone of who's like a numismatic luminary, and you know, a pretty big player in the coin industry. And so we chat a little bit, and he said about, you know, having this Holy Grail, and I said, nah, I think I got the Holy Grail of short snorters. And so then he sent it, and it arrived at 8 p.m. and I stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning. And by 2 a.m., I had deciphered 80 admirals and generals short snorters. And so we incorporated that. And then this is just an introduction. I'm not going to, you know, you can go to the book and read it. I don't want to bore you with this, but talked about how I wanted to do more research, and I found out that Clayton Bissell's diaries from World War II were in the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. And his daughter, his only daughter, who passed away in 2008, had donated those to the museum in 2006. It's like 16 boxes. And so I set up a visit to go out there and spend a week in July of last year, and took about 500 photographs with my phone. And it's kind of a rushed thing, because there's a lot of information, and part of this was uncovering, you know, some of the stuff that he did in World War I, what he did in the interwar years, how he was instrumental in the first round the world flight that just celebrated its 100th anniversary here last year. And I give some credits in here to some of the other folks that were of the research. And I put a QR code in this presentation. This was not.
I think he froze.
Yep.
Glad it wasn't me.
Tom, I think you're frozen. Oh no.
Oh, no.
Us up with Camel. These are some of the different stations that he was at. We
lost you for a couple minutes there, Tom. You froze up.
Oh no.
It's okay. You're back now.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, if anyone wants to go to the book, it's pretty much just a recap, a summary of the book. But had included some pictures of Bissell during his air service time over in France, close-ups of him, just some stock photos I found of some of the squadron that he was served in. And then when he was commanding the 638th Aero Squadron, and his citation where he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, and just, you know, give people a little bit of background of who Bissell was and what he did in World War I. And then in the interwar years, how he became involved with General Billy Mitchell. And he was kind of the proponent of the Air Force and using bombardment strategy. And one thing that came around that Bissell was involved in was this concept that an airplane could sink a battleship. And he was part of the flight team that dropped the first bombs on this captured German battleship, the Ostfriesland. And then he joined Billy Mitchell's staff, and he had that position for 4 years. And it's just a stock photo of the bombing the Ostfriesland. But what was really neat was seeing actual letters written in hand by General Mitchell back in the 1920s, and his review of Clayton Bissell. I thought this was kind of really interesting. Going through his diaries, you realize what a genius this guy was, and how he was so meticulous at documenting who he met, what was discussed, just some of his thoughts, down to he would write in World War II about he'd go on these different visits with the Army Chief of Staff and for the Air Force to these different countries, and he would write about what he bought for his wife and his daughter and things like that, and just his ideas about what the geography and the climate and the culture. Really interesting. So when Billy Mitchell was put up for court-martial in October 1925, Bissell was on his defense counsel. And one of the things that's interesting, I'll show this a little bit later, is a picture of General Billy Mitchell standing at his court-martial. And Bissell had a scrapbook from the 1924 Around the World flight, just every clipping that he could find. And he mentions in their meeting Ben Eielson in Alaska. And for those who might have heard about the origin of the tradition, Ben Eielson was one of the guys, along with okay, I'm gonna have to skip forward here a little bit. And Joe Crossan, yeah. Ben Eielson was one of the guys that partnered with Joe Crossan, and they were some of the founders of the short snorter tradition, which has its, according to some of the things I've read, has its roots up in Alaska with the bush pilots. But he didn't mention anything in his diaries about a short snorter. So I'm still trying to figure out, and I don't know if I ever will, where Bissell became acquainted with the tradition. Some more stuff from his scrapbook, picture of Bissell in the upper right corner. And then this is a picture, it's interesting, of Billy Mitchell standing at his court-martial, and it didn't say anything in this photo about Clayton Bissell, and I recognize Bissell's the guy that's sitting to his left in that civilian suit and tie, and you just look at that face, and man, that guy is intense. And that's kind of the guy he was. He was a pretty intense guy. This is I purchased this book, Who's Who in American Aeronautics. It's a 1925 edition. This is Joe Crossan's personal copy from his daughter, who lives up in Washington, kind of close to where I do. And there's this, this is the description in Who's Who that Bissell submitted for publication with his photo. And then later in the 20s, just kind of like covers, where he was at and the schools he was going to, and where he was stationed in Hawaii and what he was doing over there. Another photo of the staff in the Hawaii division. I haven't figured out which one's Bissell yet in here, but it's probably one of the taller guys. And this is from his diary submitted for Who's Who in America in 1943. Mentions his wife and their only daughter, Claire Bissell. And then I go into chapter 3 in the World War II in the CBI theater, and the relationship that he had with Claire Chenault, and it was kind of contentious. And it's interesting because Chenault got along really well with Chiang Kai-shek, and Most everyone else did not. And they kind of more or less appeased him. But Bissell got along really good with Joseph Stilwell. And there's a copy of a handwritten letter from Stilwell to Bissell that was in his diaries and his archives. The interesting thing I mentioned here on the bottom of the page, he was promoted to Brigadier General on April 22nd, 1942. This is referring to Chennault. One day after Clayton Bissell was promoted to Brigadier General, so technically Bissell outranked Claire Chennault. And just a comment about that relationship that was in another book about Hap Arnold's diaries. Communication to Chiang Kai-shek. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this and the different correspondence that was in his diaries. This is that handwritten letter I was referring to. Stilwell, it basically says, you got to get along with Claire Chennault, go slow and study the Chinese. Just some documentation of orders with promotions. Some correspondence between Chennault and Bissell, back and forth, and Hap Arnold correspondence, talking about what's going on. It was kind of a mess when he first went over there, and he really cleaned it up and got it into pretty good shape, just because of the way he was. And let's see, just some personal issues, some things that were unfavorable towards the 10th Air Force, which was what Bissell was in charge of when he first went over there. He was in charge of the 10th Air Force up until August of 1943, and then he came back to the States, and he was involved with the let's see. Okay, let's get to the part where it's the special orders for Bissell to Major General, and yeah, okay. Mentions in here about General Sorensen being kicked out as the A2, which was the intelligence officer. General Hap Arnold was in charge of the Air Corps, and he basically gave General Sorensen the boot from that position. And the earliest short snorter I have is one dated 1926. It's signed by Edgar Sorensen when he was a captain then. And there's a photo of him down in balloon school. He's the gentleman up here on the okay, can't use my pointer. That's all right. So then in October 1943, went to Chief of Staff for Air Intelligence, and a lot of these diaries are marked secret. Some of the things that he was involved with was the Japanese paper balloon bomb project, and trying to keep that out of the media because they didn't want the Japanese to know that they were having some success. But then when 6 civilians were killed in Bly, Oregon on May 5th, 1945, it got out, and they had to strategize how they were going to reveal this to the public and tell people to be cautious. He was also, in the behind the scenes in the Manhattan Project. I saw an estimate somewhere that I think back in 1943, 44, 45, that project, the number I think at the time was like 200 million or 2 billion or something like that, which was a lot of money back then. This is just reporting for duty. Another photo of him, a note in his diary about him going down and getting that photo taken at the Army Pictorial Service. Because there's so much in the Snorter about the different ranks and whatnot, and trying to figure out who's who, I just put a reference up here, a matrix of who was a 5-star general. The U.S. didn't have 5-star generals up until December 1944, because like Patton and I'm sorry, not Patton, but George C. Marshall and Eisenhower, they'd go to these meetings, and there were only 4-star generals, and they'd be outranked by these guys that were 5-star generals. So they created, and the Congress actually created a 5-star rank. And so we had fleet admirals, we had journals of the Army, and those corresponded to field marshals and grand admirals and marshals of the Air Force. So then I have just kind of an introduction to the Bissell Snorter and what's going to follow. It's pretty lengthy. One of the really interesting things in this snorter is there's actually 6 complete sets of Allied military currency specimen perforated replacement notes. They were usually issued in a booklet. I was at NPC Fest, not this past one, the one in 2023, I believe. And one of these booklets sold for like $3,500 of specimen replacements. But there's 6 complete sets of specimen perforated replacement notes in this short snorter that's 140 banknotes long. And then I just actually took a photo of each side of the short snorter, front and back. Sometimes I have one image on a page or a slide, and sometimes I have 2, depending on how much room I needed for signatures that were deciphered. There's a reference, just some of his travel itineraries when he was in air intelligence and the trips that he was making and some of the people that he was meeting. I tried to use some of this information to decipher some of the names on the short snorter. The ones for the notes that are in South America, really difficult to decipher without some kind of help. Thank God for the internet and Bissell's diaries. This is even a seating structure of this meeting that he went to and who was going to sit where. So yeah, a lot of detail there. This is about maybe 10 slides where I've got a lot of this stuff. But then I found specific references to people that he would meet and tried to tie that to the actual short snorter. And so for the part that was funded by the research with the Numismatic Society, I would put, okay, which signatures, which individuals that had signed this short snorter were discovered because of that particular reference in his diaries and doing the research. And yeah, that's kind of
Tom, real quick, for the people that may be in chat that may not know, can you give just a real Cliff Notes description what a short snorter is?
Absolutely, yeah. So this tradition started after World War I, and there's 3 different schools of thought. It could be with the barnstormers, or the balloonists, or the bush pilots in Alaska. You had a lot of surplus planes, a lot of surplus pilots. These folks wanted to keep flying. They would, find their niche. And one of the things that they learned was that aviation and alcohol don't mix, but you can have a short snort. So these pilots that drank in moderation became known as short snorters, and they formed a club, and your membership card was the U.S. $1 bill that was signed by the other short snorters. And if you didn't have that banknote on you, your membership card, your short snorter, the next time I saw you, you'd have to buy me a drink if I had signed your short snorter. And then with transoceanic flight, they made a rule that if you flew over the ocean or the equator, you could become a short snorter. And this was with, when Pan Am really started taking off, and TWA and British Overseas Airplane Company, I think is what it's called, BOAC, whatever that stands for. And you could be initiated by 3 members in good standing, which was usually the pilot, co-pilot, navigator. And then with World War II, this tradition really took off, and then the part or the practice of taping additional notes onto your short snorter came about. You could not put two of the same note on your short snorter. You could put like a Hawaii overprint silver certificate, and a blue seal silver certificate and a yellow seal silver certificate, or any foreign note on there and tape it to your short snorter. And then they might play a game where you go into a bar or club or something like that. And if you want to challenge and say, hey, there are any short snorters in here, and you want to take the challenge, you get out and compare your roll, and whoever had the shortest one would buy a drink. And it was just kind of a, camaraderie thing, morale booster. A lot of USO performers would sign short snorters when they were on USO tour. I've in that other book that's on the Numismatic portal about the tradition, there's a lot of pictures of USO performers and how they participate with the short snorter tradition. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, I think most people knew that are in the chat, but just in case there's somebody out there that's like, what the heck is a short snorter?
Sure. Yeah, that other book is about 250 slides, so it's a lot of fun though. That's the one I usually start with when I introduce the tradition to folks. This is more specialized.
Well, they still have the video. They can go back and watch that you did with us last time. So
yeah, I was gonna say, it's still out there. So
yeah.
Okay. I probably won't go through all of these, every single one of them. There's not enough time in the day. But there are a couple I wanted to point out. There's this one up here on this Portuguese 20 escudos. The second signature that I note is this Colonel Robert A. Solberg, U.S. Army. He was an OSS agent or a spy, and he had signed this short snorter several different places on different notes. This one's interesting because it's signed by Colonel Paul W. Tibbets, and this, I'm not sure, this was probably signed after they dropped the bomb, because there's a lot of references, to 1946. After the war, he eventually Bissell was a military liaison in Great Britain. Retired in 1952. If I remember correctly, he passed away in 1972. The short snorter was sold to Sarasota in around 1995. And then it sat in the back room for a long time. But it was I could go down a bunny trail, and some of the times I'd have to, when I was back in Dayton going through his diaries, I'd have to, it's like, okay, you gotta keep moving on. You gotta keep moving on, or you're never gonna get through this thing, because I could sit there and read some of this stuff, all day long, and just sit there and ponder, what's going through this guy's mind. Talking with Kessler about Russia after dinner, and strategy. There was Operation Paperclip, was the effort to bring German scientists who had been working for the Nazis to the U.S. For aerospace and physics and all these different skill sets that they had. And there's references in his diaries, to Operation Paperclip. You could write a book just about his diaries. And I've just taken, little snips out of it. Signed by Jimmy Doolittle, Medal of Honor recipient. Some of the interesting notes: Tommy White's sister-in-law. The Alibi Club with General Juin, who was the top ranked commanding officer in the French Corps Expeditionnaire. Let's see, just, Captain Berquist, he signed his short snorter, Robert Berquist. Here's one of the Allied military currency 1,000 lira notes. Some of the guys at NPC Fest, you know, they said, wow, you got to put a piece of glass over this thing so we don't drool on it. Mark Clark, and I've given presentations about the Short Snorter, you know, not the diaries and whatnot before, and had included pictures of some of the the folks that had signed this Short Snorter. Dinner with Devers. Yeah, this has got Devers' autograph for Claire, his daughter. And went to the Rome area commander. This is one that was kind of interesting. It talks about this General Brown, and I couldn't figure out this signature for the longest time. And it was this, because I didn't read that as, I thought it was Thornton or something like that. No, it was this Thoburn Brown. And I thought he was Coast Guard because it said USCG. And I couldn't decipher this one until I read his diaries, and it commanding general of the Rome area. This is an interesting one. This note down here: had lunch with Air Marshal Sir Keith Park, AOC for the entire area. And I didn't know that this was Keith Park at first. And Keith Park, a fascinating man. They say that he was the guy that saved Great Britain in the Battle of Britain. He was the RAF officer who is given credit for the success of the Battle of Britain. And to not know that in this Short Snorter kind of was doing a disservice to him. Brigadier General Tyndall and Lieutenant Colonel Dregge spent a lot of time with Bissell. This is a rare 500 mils note. Some of the guys that know more about currency than I do say that that's a $500 item. Field Marshal Alexander, he would have been 5 stars. Some references to this meeting they had in Iraq in July 1945.
So, Tom, how much does, if any, do these signatures, if you do have a piece of currency that is quite valuable, like that one you showed, how much do these signatures devalue the
well,
item,
yeah, so
or
like
does it depend on who's buying it? Like,
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So this note is taped in. You know, all these notes are all taped together.
Right.
So if you separated and sold that, you could probably, you know, get several $100s on eBay.
Okay.
From my understanding, with the signatures, because of the historical significance, most of the times on these notes, the signatures add quite a bit to the value of that artifact. Like that's one of the things Jeff Garrett says, you know, like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. What if I separate them and sold each note individually? And I said, no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's what I would think. I mean, that's where my head would go. Like, no, that's the historical value is
sure.
Like, yeah, but
and that's one of the things that, you know, I wish I could have talked to this guy and, you know, picked his brain and said, well, how did you, you know, construct this thing? Did you just, you know, there's reference in here about him having a banknote with a signature sent to him for Claire to include in his Short Snorter. And so, you know, did he just kind of assemble this thing back at home or in his office?
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever pack it around with him? I don't have the answers to that because it was not in his diaries. So, and some of these notes are dated, you know, like this one is dated 1942, and the back might be dated 1946. So, yeah.
So it's not necessarily a running timeline of front to back
not.
where what, okay.
Not where I would expect with a lot of Short Snorters, where you could almost follow someone's progression.
That's what I would. Yeah, that's what see it as kind of being, but
That would have been easy. That would have made it easy.
yeah. Hmm.
Oh, this is interesting. Archie Roosevelt. Archie Roosevelt was the only person that has been awarded a Purple Heart for being wounded in battle for the same basic wound in 2 different wars. It was either shot or shrapnel, and I believe it was his right knee in World War I, and somewhat the same injury in World War II.
Wow.
Not in the buttocks.
No, that happened to my grandfather.
Oh,
World
no.
War I. Yeah.
That's a better story.
Yeah. So at one time I thought this was the actual Shah of Iran that had signed this, but it found out that was the Crown Prince, Abdul Reza Pahlavi, and he's still alive. Yeah.
Wow.
It'd be interesting to show it to him and say, "Hey, look, do you remember signing this thing?"
You think you remember?
He might.
He might.
Yeah. Just some more references in the Bible, or I'm sorry, not the Bible, the diaries. Let's see here. This was interesting. So some of the different, I had to do some Google search on this one, because Binbasi and Corps General, those are actual ranks. Yuzbasi, Yarbe, and I had to go. When I found that out, it says, "Oh, this one up here says MSB Bas something," and it says KORG. That's their abbreviation for Corps General. Gibbs and Matthew, yeah. This is interesting. This George Stratemeyer, the top signature here, he was the instructor of the first class of Tuskegee Airmen. Found a photo of him.
Wow.
Yeah. He kind of took over in the CBI when Bissell left. He was one of the guys that was, really high up and getting a lot of stuff done over there. But it's crazy to go through here and see all the admirals and generals.
No kidding.
When I first, after about 2 weeks before the fun show in 2003, the first stab, I had 290 admirals and generals, and I've got a statistic at the back of this thing. I think it's now up to 340 or something like that. Admirals and generals.
So do you ever, like when you're at these shows, do you ever get somebody that comes up that's like, "Hey, I signed that," or that?
I've never had that happen.
Never had that happen, huh?
No,
that would be so cool.
I've had people contact me about the website and saying, "Oh, this is my uncle," and stuff like that. I've had those kind of connections, but never at a show. I've had a few people at show, quite a few people at some of the different events, because I also set up at like aviation museums and National Museum of World War II and National D-Day Memorial. Yeah, I've had people come up and say, "Oh yeah, my so-and-so had one," and they might send me pictures of it later and things like that. Or they had one guy at the fun show that brought a short snorter up and says, "Hey, I've had this for a while. Can you tell me about it?" And there's a Hawaii overprint. And I looked at it and says, "Oh, well, it's signed by Bob Hope and it's signed by Langford. Forget what her first name was. But and he's like, "Oh wow, I never knew."
How fun!
This is very interesting. Signed by Jinx Falkenberg McCrary. Now I've had several short snorters signed by Jinx Falkenberg, and she was a phenomenal person. I mean, she really she did a USO performance in the CBI, the China Burma India Theater operation. I think they did like 80 shows, and then they would also go to the hospitals and visit people. Yeah. And this is the only time I've ever seen her sign something with her married last name, McCrary. But I used to have a short snorter that belonged to her. It was involved in a theft, but it had a picture of her that this gal, she was in the Red Cross, had taken in Calcutta in 1944 of Jinx Falkenberg signing a short snorter on this guy's accordion. And this one is really interesting. This is really kind of one of those ones that blew me away, because it's signed by Chiang Kai-shek, and it's also signed by his wife, Madam Chiang. And I was like, wow, you know, to
now,
have
these are the
both of
people
their,
you talked about earlier.
what's that?
These are the people that you had referenced earlier, correct? That
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Chiang Kai-shek was him and Claire Chenault were buddies.
Yeah.
And Mei Ling was high rank. She was educated in America, so she was fluent in English.
Right.
And she was like in charge of the aviation section. So basically, Claire Chenault more or less reported to her when they were the Flying Tigers, the American volunteer group. But the interesting thing about this, I wish it would have been dated, because this was a picture that I found on the internet. And this was Bissell standing with Chiang Kai-shek and Madam Chiang with a bunch of Doolittle Raiders after they had bombed Tokyo and other parts of Japan in 1942.
Wow.
But there's no mention of that in his diaries. So I was kind of bummed about that. One signed by Claire Chenault. And I'll just kind of spin through some of this stuff here. Louis Mountbatten. Speaking of Louis Mountbatten, I've got another short snorter I think I shared with you folks already that belonged to General Eisenhower's orderly. And if not, we could do a separate one on that. But as you can expect, it's signed by, you know, all of the big players in the European theater of operation, including Bernard Montgomery, which did not sign this short snorter. There's no Field Marshal Montgomery on this short snorter. But I'm actually going to be down in Salt Lake City in June for a taping of Antiques Roadshow. And I submitted that short snorter as an object for the roadshow. And
nice.
I got a couple of tickets. So I'm going to be down there in June trying to get that thing on TV.
Oh, fun.
Awesome.
You have to keep us posted and let us know.
You bet. Yeah, let's see what else.
I don't know what's cooler looking at this stuff, like the signatures or some of the currency that you're showing.
Yeah,
I'm on to like some of the currency.
This is the one when it first arrived that I stopped when I saw MacArthur. I had to stop because I'd never seen a short snorter signed by Douglas MacArthur. And it's also signed at the top by W.F. Halsey, Bull Halsey. And then right below that was the one I could not figure out because it looked like it started with a O and a C and a T and an A. And then I saw a picture of George C. Marshall with Avita Culp Hobby. And she's the first director of the Women's Army Corps. And if you've ever been through Houston, the airport there is Hobby Airport. That's her family.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a picture of her. Let's see here. Yeah, some more references to some guys in the 5th Air Force out in the South Pacific. And this is all in the book, so I'm not really skipping over too much that you can't look at some other time. Vandergrift was a Medal of Honor recipient. And one of the things I found out doing the research was, you kind of go down a bunny trail. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years. And you look up someone's name on, you find their name and you figure out, okay, this person's a general and they signed the short snorter. But then you look up their bio and most of these admirals and generals had served in World War I because there's only a decade and a half, two decades between 1 and 2. So this is a interesting piece of Japanese invasion money. It's got this co-prosperity sphere. What is it worth on the back of it? And I don't have the I don't have it in here, but there's a discussion about the co-prosperity sphere on the internet, and it was kind of the Japanese were trying to get the Western democracies out of their finances and say that, you know, we're gonna with a lot of other Asian countries, we're gonna be self-sufficient. It's kind of like BRICS, you know, what the BRICS countries are trying to do right now to get the world off using the American dollar.
Yeah.
How about that price of gold? Let's see.
I won't be buying any anytime soon. We'll just leave it at that.
You can get fractional gold.
Yeah, that's about it.
Gold backs.
I can get grains.
Gold backs.
Yeah. I don't know if your viewers know much about gold backs. They're kind of
yeah, you know,
pretty cool.
They are very cool and they're very cool looking. I just
got a Florida half gold back, which I hear Florida, that's the only one that has a half.
Yeah, they gave them away for free, or someone didn't.
Yeah.
Someone give them
Florida
away
has a half, and Florida has a 2, and Florida has 100. And I was at a coin show out in Seattle a couple weeks ago, PNNA, and there was 3 dealers there that had gold backs, and there was one from Arizona, but there was a dealer in Renton had a 50 gold back, and he was asking $240 for it. And I went and looked, and at the time, I think gold backs were like $620, so it was, you know, $325 at exchange rate. And I bought it from him, and I took and sold it to the other guy for $300. Paid for my early bird admission.
Wow, nice.
Let's see. Okay, we're gonna start getting into some really interesting pieces of this short snorter. Another one signed by Shanghai Chet. This is probably the one that he got in the mail. And I want to touch on, there's another Medal of Honor recipient, Wild Bill Donovan, Medal of Honor from World War I. He was the director of the OSS, which became the CIA. So there's a set of 2 British 10 shillings notes, followed by 2 US $1 silver certificates, and they're all high-ranking, you know, top advisors to the King and advisors to Winston Churchill. This one is signed by Winston Churchill on the back, and then a lot of the other high rankings on the second one, field marshals and admirals of the fleet. And then this note here is interesting. It's signed by outgoing and incoming secretaries of war, Harry S. Truman. So this would have been after Roosevelt had passed away on April 12th, 1945. And then it's signed by Fleet Admiral William Leahy, Fleet Admiral Ernest J. King, General of the Army Hap Arnold. So there's 3 5-star rank on the front of that note. And it's signed by Eisenhower and Marshall on the back. So that one particular banknote is signed by 5 5-star admirals and generals.
Dang.
Yeah, that's the only one I've ever seen, you know, that's got that many on it. Now I had one that I donated to the WASP World War II Memorial last April, and it was a donation to the Short Snorter Project from a guy who was a collector that we had corresponded with like 10 years ago, and he'd passed away, and his sister found my website. And that one was signed by Admiral King. Let's see, Fleet Admiral King, Mr. King. What was the other Fleet Admiral? Oh, shoot, I have it here. Leahy. And it was signed by Hap Arnold, and it was also signed by Bob Hope. And it was signed by a gal named Jacqueline Cochran, who was like the gal in charge of the training down at the field for the WASP in World War II in Sweetwater, Texas. So I donated that one to that museum. Was down there and actually put on an exhibit. That was pretty cool. There's a piece of paper in here that is typed on there. This is a piece of the paper envelope of one of the Japanese bombing balloons, which crossed the Pacific and landed in the United States in March 1945. Most people don't know that, like, I think there's over 400 of these balloons that actually landed in the US. And the whole strategy of the Japanese was to start forest fires. And so that's why they wanted to keep it secret. And I think one of these was found up in somewhere in a forest in Montana in 2018. Yeah, this particular part of his journals were really helpful for figuring out all these names. He had all the ones in blue. I want to show this. There's a one coming up here, a Turkish note. We're just about, oh, yeah, legal aid at the Nuremberg trials. There's Colonel Robert Solberg, that OSS spy again. Okay, some more perforated specimen, Allied military currency, the high denomination notes, extremely rare. Jacques Henry Schlossig, RAF, but he was with the 1st Free French Squadron, commanding the Ile-de-France group, and he was fatally shot down on the 26th August 1944. So this was signed sometime before he lost his life. Let's see, where's this Turkish note? It's pretty interesting. We're getting to it here, just a couple. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this 50 Kurus note is pretty interesting. On the back, it had you can see down at the bottom, it says banquet, or about midway down, it starts off, it says banquet, Gar, restaurant, August 10th, 44, crew of B-17 down at Side, which is in Turkey, on July 28th. And then it has the comment, loving tonight. So I call this the Amazing Grace short snorter, because at one time these guys were lost and they were found. And I got a hit on the third signature down, William J. Salmons, and I found that he was with the 463rd Bomb Group, and their webmaster gave me all the information about them, including this photo. Now, it doesn't have all of them in the photo, and that's because a lot of times with a lot of the bombing crews, guys got mixed around, stuff like that. Maybe a guy was sick and they have a replacement navigator or something like that. But this is most of the guys that could sign this short snorter were in this crew photo. Let's see. There's a bunch of South American notes. First president of Lebanon. Okay, this is interesting. It says a reference to Air Commodore H.W. Lloyd of the RAF, and another reference to Lloyd and Nimitz. And this was when there was this meeting that was going on, and you can see the top signature is Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, and then Three signatures below that is Air Vice Marshal Hugh Pugh Lloyd, and he was the commander designate of Tiger Force. So after the Germans surrendered in May of 1945, per agreements with a lot of the high-level meetings that they'd had with Churchill and Roosevelt and whatnot, the British started cooperating with the United States planning the invasion of Japan. And that was what Tiger Force was how they were going to fly these Lancaster bombers over the Arctic. And there was a Canadian note back in there that was one of these flights over the Arctic. And so these signatures were probably gathered at one of those meetings planning the invasion of Japan. And we know how that turned out. So now we're going to get into there's another one here I like to highlight. Right here, there's a reference in his diary, 5th of September, 1945. 3 of the Doolittle Flyers, Chase Nielsen, Robert Height, and Jacob DeShazer, called on me. And there's a reference in here to the conversations they had and his thoughts about their spirits and just lack of humor and things like that. Well, these guys were part of the April 12th, 1945. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to say 18th or 19th, 1942 Tokyo raid, Doolittle Raiders, but they were captured. Jacob DeShazer was in plane number 16. And if you see a picture of the Carrier Hornet, that's the last plane that's backed up all the way on the stern of the aircraft carrier with its fuselage hanging over. And he was the engineer on that plane. And they bombed Nagoya, and then they crash landed in Japanese occupied China, and he was captured on day 2, along with Height, Nielsen, and another gentleman. What is his name? Metter, Meder, Robert Metter, and along with 4 others. And they were taken back to Tokyo, and there was a summary court martial, and they were all, given basically the execution order, but the Emperor of Japan said, "No, we're going to give these guys a break." And DeShazer, Height, Nielsen, and Metter, we're going to give them life in prison. So they sent them to a prison in China, where they pretty much spent the duration of the war in solitary confinement. And Metter was a Christian, and he was witnessing to DeShazer out in the courtyard, because they were allowed to go out and pick weeds in the courtyard, about forgiveness and all this stuff, and just how to have peace and not be so angry all the time. And then shortly thereafter, Metter died from beriberi dysentery. And DeShazer, the Japanese decided to lighten up a little bit, and so they gave them some extra rice, a blanket, and some books to read. And one of the books that DeShazer had was a Bible, and he had it for, I believe, 3 weeks. And he became a Christian, and he said that he would devote his life to God if he survived the war. And so he did. The surrender ceremony was officially on the 2nd of September, 1945. And this was 3 days after when he signed the Short Snorter. And DeShazer is interesting. I might have talked about this earlier. I've talked about him quite a bit, because when he came back to the States, he went to Seattle Pacific College. It's now Seattle Pacific University. Got his degree, met a gal, they got married, and they went back to Japan as missionaries. And he wrote this book, or a little booklet called "I Was a Prisoner of Japan," and it was translated into Japanese. And one of the guys that he befriended was a gentleman named Mitsuo Fuchida. And Mitsuo Fuchida was the Japanese naval aviator that led the attack on Pearl Harbor. And they became friends. He became a Christian, and they would go out sharing the gospel together. And I told this to some guys at my church here in Bozeman. The guy goes, "Oh yeah, I saw when they came down and spoke at the Baptist church." here in Bozeman back in 1970, whatever. And I've actually found a copy of his book on the internet. Let's see, it says From Pearl Harbor to Golgotha, and it's signed by Mitsuo Fuchida.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna probably, let's see here. Oh, here's one that's signed by Patton. That's always, people like to see that. Bedell Smith, Spots, high ranking. These guys were Eisenhower's right and left hand men. Herbert Hoover signed it. J. Edgar Hoover signed it. Kind of interesting. And let's see. So these were a lot of signatures in these South American notes that are really, really hard to decipher. And the cool thing about Bissell was he wrote in the margins of a lot of these, some of these guys' names and what their title was or what their role was. So that helped a lot.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah. I'd be lost with a lot of these without that. And he'd have references to these guys in his diaries too. There's let's see, I'll get back to some of these. I'm going to kind of skip through these fairly rapidly unless something really stands out. Oh, Trenchard. This is interesting. Marshal of the Royal Air Force, Hugh Trenchard. He was the founder of the British Royal Air Force. This is like 1915 or something like that. I've seen some of the pictures, from back there of these guys. He's pretty amazing. He must have been pretty old when he signed this thing too. Military attaches, aka spies. I shouldn't say that. I don't know for sure. I really want to show you this one note back in here. It's from Cuba. Getting close. This is it. Raymond Henry Norweb. So when I found this one, I was like, hey, this is cool. And I let Jeff Garrett know because technically he's the owner of the Short Snorter. It's still on loan. I will have it on display at the ANA World's Fair of Money in Oklahoma City in August. But the story about Norweb and the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. And so it was kind of neat to see that, oh, yes, Norweb signed the Short Snorter when he was an ambassador to Cuba. Then there's another one. This is an interesting one here. It's signed by Field Marshal Jan Christian Smuts, who was the Prime Minister of South Africa, but he was also the only person that had signed. He fought in the Boer War against the British, and then he fought with the British in World War I and II. And he's the only one that signed the surrender documents for World War II, World War I, and another, it might have been the UN Charter or something like that. And then there's another signature down here. It says General Thomas Holcomb, USMC. He was, I believe, the fourth Commandant of the Marine Corps. And I gave this presentation at the World's Fair of Money in, I want to say, in March of 2003. And Eric Holcomb was sitting out in the audience. And he raised his hand and says, hey, that's my great uncle. I said, what? And so there's a picture of Eric Holcomb holding the Short Snorter. And this is in March of 2023 at the in a national money show. And then he sent me this photo, and this is him with his great uncle in 1965. This is about 2 months, I believe, before his great uncle passed away. So there's Eric on the right with his nice little bow tie on. He does a lot for the ANA, sending things out, like the mint mark or whatever, and a lot of stuff with the PNNA and their website. Good guy. And I think that is just about it. If you do go to the book and you want to try to find a name or something like that, at the back of the back of the book, there's this big index of signatures of who signed each banknote front and back. And it's kind of lengthy, but it has been helpful. And I use it all the time. I think this is a great reference for someone who wants to authenticate a signature.
Mm-hmm.
Like that little bald guy that works for Beckett that goes on the Pawn Stars.
The little bald guy.
I hope he's not on here.
I don't think he's watching.
I've met him before one time. I had him authenticate a short snorter that was signed by Frank Sinatra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
So we had a couple questions for you.
You betcha.
Let me pull this down. Thanks for doing that, Tom. That is always interesting.
Was there like 145? How many?
I would love to see that in person. Like, see how big. I would love for everybody who watched this to actually see how big those actually are.
Yeah.
Because you can see it like in a presentation like this and see how he goes through this, but to actually see it, in like the role and how big those are, how involved they are.
When I was showing this at the Fun Show back in 2003, I'm trying to remember the past president, the ANA, John Wilson. He came up to me and I kind of gave him the spiel and showed it to this, and he got emotional. And he says, wow, this is one of the greatest numismatic finds ever. And I was like, wow, and for him to say that, of all the stuff that he's seen, that kind of blew me away. Yeah. So the count on the flag ranks are up to 325. For some reason, I had the presidents and prime ministers at 17, and I must have figured something else out. It was probably the guy who was a prince. Well, no, he's still in there. But the ambassadors and ministers went up to 67. So when I did the Antiques, or not the Antiques Roadshow, the Pawn Stars Does America, season 2, the Lexington episode, I had come on to the show as the subject matter expert, and Jeff Garrett, one of his employees, brought it onto the show and showed it to them. And then they had me come on and, give an appraisal. Well, how you going to, in 5 minutes, how you going to appraise something? And say, oh, yeah, it's signed by 300 admirals and generals and all these other guys, And so I basically made a kind of a formula. And I told them, I says, well, I think it's worth $105,000. And they offered $30,000 for it.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
No sale.
Yeah, that's what I would have been like, meh. I'll put it on eBay.
So there you go.
Jack Riley wanted to know if you have seen any counterfeit short snorters.
Yes,
Jack Riley's kind of a counterfeit dude.
Counterfeit signatures. Yeah, spurious signatures I have. In fact, there was a gentleman that I knew at the Everett Coin Club that would set up at a lot of the gun shows and some of the coin shows. And he had one that says, oh, I've got this short snorter over here signed by Jimmy Doolittle. And I went and looked at it. And it's like, well, he never, ever signed anything that I have ever seen Jimmy. It's always J.H. So J.H., that was a clear giveaway on that one. But I've seen other ones where it looked like, there was 4 or 5 USO performers had signed something, and like a Bob Hope, and it's not Bob Hope's signature, and Bing Crosby, and it's not Bing Crosby's signature, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully this will help people to, go through and identify signatures.
One question was about the link to the book, but we already put that in there.
Okay.
Michael Kittle he didn't have a question. He just said his local coin shop once had a short snorter with so many signatures. It was 20 to 25 world notes taped end to end.
Sure. Yeah. I just picked up one here. Oh, this is kind of cool. I don't know if you can see that.
One of the original short. Okay, it's a little too cool. So
Pull it up a little bit.
okay, right there. Short Snorter bells, Cleveland. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah. You're asking someone who's totally blind.
I'll read it. It says one of the original short snorter bills, Cleveland Air Races 1929, and then it says all QBs. So there's a you don't see it too often anymore, but there's a kind of a sort of a secret society called the Quiet Birdmen.
Yeah.
And all of the gentlemen that had signed the short snorter were Quiet Birdmen. And some of the if you're into early aviation, T. Claude Ryan Aeronautical, they built the plane that okay, help me out here. The guy that flew over the Lindbergh. Ryan Aeronautical built Lindbergh's plane. It's signed by Frank Hawks. Frank Hawks gave Amelia Earhart her very first airplane ride.
Wow.
Tex Rankin, he's an interesting character. On one side of his plane, it says Tex Rankin right side up, and on the other side, it was painted upside down, so that when he was inverted, you could see that he was still Tex Rankin.
How funny.
Jimmy Doolittle. This thing's really rare. It came up on eBay, and the gal that was selling it was the daughter of one of the very first curators at the National Air and Space Museum, part of the Smithsonian. And it was in his stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really, really rare.
Okay,
you don't see the early short snorters very often. And if you do, pre-World War II ones are exceptionally rare. I wanted to pull one out, but I don't know, it's buried somewhere. I picked up one at this coin show that is a Midway Island short snorter. And
you sound like a collector.
What's
Right.
that?
I don't know, it's here somewhere.
Yeah. It's kind of like Fred Schwann saying, well, I got all this stuff, I got to sort through, blah, blah, blah.
We're all like that. I don't know. It's on my desk somewhere.
One of these days. That's for a different presentation.
Right. Kelly Kaiser, we answered her. She just wanted to, or him. I don't know, Kelly. Sorry. Says, is there a way you can help with a signature on a snorter? We already gave them the email
TJ
address.
Sparks at shortsnorter.org. You betcha. Send me an email.
And another question was, when you get snorters with just one signature on two separate notes with different dates and different currency, is this perhaps a pilot from two different conflicts?
Not sure I really understand.
When
the
you
question.
get snorters with just one signature on two separate notes, so a run, one signature on two separate notes with different dates and different currencies. Okay, is this perhaps a pilot from two different conflicts?
I've seen that. Now, if it's World War II notes, and I've seen that, where there might be a set and there's 3, 4, or 5 different notes and they're all signed by just one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a guy that was stenciling his currency, so that if he lost it, it would be returned to him.
Oh, how funny!
Not technically a short snorter. A lot of people would put that in the category of graffiti.
Hard to know, though, right? Like, wouldn't it be hard to know if it wasn't like he just walked into a bar and was the only guy in there, and hoping other people would show up? I don't know.
And typically a short snorter, even if it's a single bill, it'll have, and it was part of a long chain of short snorters. it would have that tape residue on one or both ends.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, that was all the questions that I starred. Let's see, one person signed. This is from Corsica. Corsica? Corsica? I don't know. I know. I am looking forward to that too, Ken of Mine. Yeah, Ken of Mine said, looking forward to seeing you on Antiques Roadshow. Keep Paula updated on the show date. Yeah, so keep us updated on that for sure. My dad.
See the question about the bar note. So
yeah.
bar was spelled B-A-R-R.
R. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Secretary of the Treasury or something like that. I don't know.
For a very, very short,
Yeah.
like a month. Like a month.
Yeah, that's why
like
people collect them, because it was for a very short time.
Yeah, he was the Secretary of the Treasury, I believe, for like a month. Yeah, so it was a very short run.
Yeah, we started a coin club in Bozeman.
Oh, nice.
So that's been fun. We started in September, and one of the cool things we do is we have a penny guess. I'll grab one of these and show you. Yeah. This is almost like an advertising for the Bank of Bozeman. So they donated a bunch of these little plastic piggy banks, and we get some obsolete coinage and some just regular change, and they have to guess how many cents are in that piggy bank. So if you put $1 in there, that's 100 cents. You got to add it up, and we do it for kids 12 and under. And so we've had, I believe, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we've had 6 different winners of the 7 different guesses. The first winner was my grandson, and he was the only one that showed up to the meeting. So he was the winner.
I love it when that happens. Those are good odds.
Now we're getting about 35 people that show up. We've patterned some of our things after the Lexington Bluegrass Coin Club and some of the other coin clubs. The piggy bank thing was what the Everett Coin Club used to do. Mm-hmm. But I think it's fun, because I like to put in like an occasional low-grade 2-cent piece or a large cent or a bunch of Indian head pennies and stuff that maybe if kids get duplicates, they can go trade with their other buddies and invite them to the coin club meeting.
Now's a great time for that too. It's National Coin Week, so
yes,
and it's a great time. We told our viewers and stuff and people on our Facebook group that it's a great time to, if you have dateless buffaloes or low grade, 2-centers or any of that, any cool stuff that you think that people might find and change and get them interested. It's a great time to do that. And it's also a great time if you're a coin roll hunter to go get boxes of coins, because dealers and collectors alike do start putting interesting stuff into change and through the coin stars and stuff like that. And so you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. So the bank here that sponsored, with the well, at one time they were giving us $20 a month and to spend on coins to stick in there. We were going over budget, but they donated, I think they've donated 25 of these piggy banks so far. And so for National Coin Week, we put an exhibit in a regular All-State showcase in the bank branch, and it has pictures of the past winners with their holding their piggy banks. And then I sawed off the backside of one of these things. I took a hacksaw and sawed off so it would fit in the showcase, and then opened up the plug and spilled the coins out all over in the display case so they can kind of see, what's in the piggy bank, and maybe I'll get some of the kids interested in coming to the coin club meeting. And then,
well, that's what we got to do. We got to get the kids involved, right?
Absolutely,
yeah. That's a big thing.
We have a board member, gentleman that's also on the board at another credit union here, and he was instrumental in getting them to donate some money to the club. We're going to start doing a coins in the classroom.
I love that.
Gallatin Valley. Yeah. And so I'm working on a curriculum with another director But then we put an exhibit. It's kind of turned out to be a poster in the 3 bank branches of the credit union, and it has a numismatic quiz about 11 questions that on the poster there's a QR code where they can go and answer this thing.
Nice.
And then if they're get all the questions right, or whoever gets the most, I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but there's going to be a winner who's going to get an uncirculated Morgan silver dollar out of that deal.
Nice. So, well, you might know somebody who might be able to give you a deal on some red books.
Yeah,
those would be great giveaways for you.
I do know a guy.
Kiddos. You might know him.
I know this guy.
Know his name.
He has been very helpful. Both Jeff and Mary Lynn. Mary Lynn gave a talk 2 meetings ago about collecting ancient coins, and Mid-American, they got a pretty good market in that, and she loves ancient coins, especially with horses on them. And then he gave a talk. I think it's one of the ones he's going to do for one of the numismatic things or whatever it is, about the Great Kentucky Hoard. That was just, people loved it in our coin club.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll get him on one of these days. You might put in a good word. We are going to be buying some copies of the 2026 Red Book, though, to give away on our channel, because I really like what they've done with it. I think they've made some really, really great improvements. Yeah, it's great. I haven't bought a Red Book in years, and
there was a deal at the PNNA show. Some guy was selling it for what I thought was pretty reasonable. And nice. I've never had a large print, but getting to that.
That's
point
what
in
I'm
my life where I need a large print
for myself. But we usually tell our viewers, first book we recommend is the Red Book, just because it's the best source for just all things general numismatic information. But we tell them buy one that's a few years old. You can get it a lot cheaper, and it's basically got all the same information. But this year's different.
Yeah.
This year I am telling people get yourself a new one this year, because they have they've got the QR codes that you can scan, all kinds of neat stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get it. So I wanted to answer a question real quick in chat. Freaking Awesome. Freaking Awesome asked if a coin has a die clash, obverse and reverse, there would in no way get a perfect grade, as it would be considered damage. Is that correct assumption? So first of all, it's not considered damage, but it's very hard even to get a perfect coin to get a perfect grade. It's nearly impossible to get a coin even that has no marks. It is not supposed to affect the grade. I think it probably would affect the grade. It's not supposed to. They're supposed to grade around the error. So with error coins, they're supposed to grade the non-error areas of a coin. With that being said, it can detract from, it depends on who's looking at the coin really, but I think it probably could detract from some of the eye appeal if the person looking at it is not into error coins. It's not going to get a perfect strike, I don't think, because it does affect it. I think it does. I think it affects it. When you look at the overall grading of a coin, I think any marks on a coin, whether it's from the minting process or for bag marks or something like that, any mark on a coin, I think is distracting and would affect the grade in some way. But I don't know. I'm not a grader, but it's not a damaged coin, if that answers your question. Freaking Awesome. It's a minting error. It happens during the minting process, so it's not an error. I mean, it's not damage. It is an error. Sorry. Anyway, they shouldn't affect. They shouldn't, but they do, Luther. I mean, let's be honest. They do. If you have an error coin with a big, beautiful struck through, because I'm an error gal, I think it's a beautiful thing. Somebody else is going to look at it, and it may, and to them, it may take away from some of the eye appeal, but subjective, right? So anyway, on that note, I think we are going to wrap it up. Tom, we can't tell you how much it means
so
to have
much.
you up here and how great that presentation was. It's fantastic. Our views always go up and up and up on when we have you and some of our other guests on that just do these great educational things. And that's what we're all about. So we like to get the education out there.
I got to figure out how to get on the distribution because, for whatever reason, I don't see any notifications about any of the upcoming broadcasts.
Okay, so if you go to our channel, you have to make sure you're subscribed. And then there's a little bell. You click on that and it'll pull down and drop down a menu and you just click all.
Oh, okay.
And it'll kind of put like a little slash or something through the bell. It'll let you know that you'll now get all. And every once in a while, it's a good idea to go back into your subscriptions and unclick the bell and re-click it because sometimes YouTube, for whatever reason, will remove that. But yeah, so that's how. But right now we are kind of still sporadic. We don't have a scheduled day like we had for years because we're kind of we're revamping the channel and getting some new stuff on and stuff, and we're going to set a different day for our live streams. So yeah, but eventually we'll be back normal, and so yeah,
as normal as we are.
as normal as we are. Maybe one day we'll get Jeff up here, and now would be a great time for him to contact us and get promote the Red Book.
Yeah,
he likes to talk, so it shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, okay. Well, Tom, thanks again.
Thanks, Tom.
For coming up, and if you have another idea, something that you want to come up and do a presentation on, we are open anytime, and we love having you up. So I know our viewers appreciate it. So
appreciate it.
All right.
Okay,
you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks everybody for coming. We really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being patient with us. We'll get back on track. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.